from holding. If that bill, which is seeking to amend the constitution, goes through, dual citizens can now become members of parliament. They can become the cabinet secretary, the IGP, the chief of defense staff, and a host of other public offices. That bill, in fact, was expected to be passed in the 8th parliament, but for the last minute skirmishes over the seat vacancy controversy, it has come up again a year later, and people now seem to have caught the storm. And on social media this week in particular, on X, people have been speaking out. So many people in opposition. They say dual citizens should still not be allowed to hold certain public offices. There are those also who hold a contrary view. And so tonight on Ghana Connect, we bring together some brilliant minds to connect with us on this very important matter on whether or not dual citizens ought to be allowed to hold certain public office. But here is the Speaker of Parliament on this matter when he came up. Just listen to him.
Honourable members, the Honourable Member for Achim Sudru, Honourable Kennedy Osei Nyaku, in the 8th Parliament, requested for assistance to draft and introduce a private members bill titled Constitution of the Republic of Ghana Amendment Bill 2021. The bill was taken through the relevant pre-parliamentary procedure and laid before the House on 2nd June 2022. 1. In accordance with Standing Order 182, a legal opinion on the proposed bill was submitted to me. I have carefully considered the report of the committee and have formed the view that the bill does not impose or alter any taxation, nor does it create a charge on the consolidated fund within the meaning of Article 108 of the Constitution. Accordingly, I direct that the Business Committee schedule the bill for the presentation to the House. Please, I so direct.
Is Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin. So, I mean, barring any last-minute skirmishes, this bill is going to go through because I report in Parliament. I'm telling you, in the 8th Parliament, there was near unanimity, near consensus that this bill ought to go. But there are still strong views who say that, listen, this is not the time to do this. So, let's get some brilliant perspective on this. Olele Salvador, for those of you on X, he is a very, very, very big-time broadcaster, and he's been sharing some views on this. In fact, he has started a trend, drop that bill. Olele Salvador, it's good to have you connect with us. If you can unmute, welcome to Ghana Connect.
My brother, good evening. Can you hear me?
Loud
do a
and
sound
clear.
check to be sure. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Good evening, and thank you so much for having me. And good evening to your listeners as well.
Brilliant.
Looking forward to an open and honest conversation about subject matter tonight.
Brilliant. So, also in studio, David Quay. He wears a lot of hats. He is an international relations analyst. He is a civil society activist. He is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He has his legs just crossed right over here in studio. David Quay, it's good to have you connect with us.
Thank you, Kwaku, for having me here, and I'm happy to be here with you this evening as well.
At some point, we'll be joined by Mo Salamandani. He's an international student. But also, one other person that I always love to have on the show, Nana Kakari, big woman, big-time journalist with a lot of very, very strong views on a lot of national issues. She's a Ghanaian. She's based in the U.S. She's a senior journalist. She connects with us. Nana Kakari, it's good to have you connect with us.
What an accolade, Kwaku. Thank you so much. And I must quickly say that I am also a dual citizen.
Brilliant.
I hold dual citizenship with Ghana and United States.
Super. That is very interesting. So, just before we get into the conversation, for context, for those of you who just haven't followed much, our Constitution provides in Article 8.2 that without prejudice to Article 94.2a of the Constitution, no citizen of Ghana shall qualify to be appointed as a holder of any office specified in this clause if he holds the citizenship of any other country in addition to his citizenship of Ghana. Ambassador or High Commissioner, Secretary to the Cabinet, Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General of Police, Commissioner, Customs, Excise and Preventive Service, Director of Immigration Service, and any office specified by an Act of Parliament. In fact, Article 94(2)(a) also proscribes dual citizens from holding office as members of parliament. In fact, the list was long. If you were a dual citizen, you could not become a chief justice or a justice of the Supreme Court. But for those of you who followed, the Supreme Court struck down that part of the Citizenship Act. And so now dual citizens can become chief justices and they can become justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, Supreme Court in particular when it comes to this conversation. But this one, the bill that is now being sponsored by at least two NPP MPs that I know very conversant with, from NPP MP for Akim Swedro, Honorable Kennedy Osei-Nyako, and Honorable OPK, is seeking to do away with all of this and allow dual citizens to hold these offices. Olele, let me start with you. Why is your ox God that much? Why are you opposed to your fellow Ghanaians who just happen to hold other citizenship in addition to their Ghanaian citizenship from becoming MPs, from becoming IGPs and whatnot?
Well, Kwaku, thank you once again. I think, like you rightfully said, and as you rightfully referred to the articles that currently prevents these things from happening, I for one don't want to go way back to why our forefathers in 1992 decided to do it that way. I mean, we know the Constitution to a large extent has suffered a lot of bashing that requires review and whatnot. But for this particular one, I would love to just come from the constitutional backstory. So we know why the framers of that constitution were very clear that the president of Ghana had to be citizen by birth. And these other positions you just mentioned were essentially closed off. So basically, the people in charge of our state security and our borders couldn't have divided loyalties. At the time, it made a lot of sense. You know, Ghana had just come out of military rule. The constitution was trying to rebuild the nation. You need people in sensitive positions who couldn't be pressured by another country. Then you look at 1996, Parliament passed Act 527. And what that did was it created a pathway for the dual citizenship. Essentially saying that, you know, Ghanaians can have another passport if they renounce their original Ghanaian citizenship and they come back and claim it again later. The law at the time was basically acknowledging the fact that Ghanaians were moving overseas. They were having kids overseas. They were building lives overseas. One of my co-panelists on the call just admitted that she's also a dual citizen. So it's not like we are not familiar with what is happening, right? So the framers said, fine, we will allow it, but we are keeping these restrictions on public office. Then in 2000, what happened? We saw that Parliament passed Act 591, and this one expanded the list of restricted positions, which added the chief directors, military colonels, and some public sector rules. The message was still clear that we are okay with dual citizens as citizens, but it is not good enough a pass to become gatekeepers. All right? Now, we've held on to this for more than 2 decades until April 2024, when OBK, as you mentioned, filed the case in court and he challenged the constitutionality of the Act 591, saying that, you know, you can't be a chief justice if you hold a dual citizenship. And he went all the way to the Supreme Court thought it wise to rule 6-1 in his favor, saying that the law that set up these restrictions was unconstitutional. Why? Because the 1992 Constitution is entrenched. That means Parliament cannot amend it through a regular act of Parliament, only through a constitutional amendment, which requires 2/3 supermajority. So what the Supreme Court at the time was telling us was, you can't restrict dual citizens through a regular law. If you want to restrict them, that restriction has to be written into the Constitution itself, and it has to get to a supermajority. Are you following?
We are following. Yes,
who's following. Okay, all right. So what was the practical effect? The practical effect was dual citizens can now be chief justice, chief directors, military colonels, and so on and so forth. But all those positions in Act 591 that were closed up, were now open. So you look at the timing here. This was April 2024. The courts opened up major positions for a dual citizen to apply for. 9 months later, early 2025, what happens? Parliament is trying to open up all the remaining positions. MPs, the IGP, the Director of Immigration, ambassadors. That is what this new bill is saying. That is what this new bill, and we seem to have forgotten that just last 2 or 3 years ago, we are dealing with a similar situation with Jackie Kwesi. We all know the story about Honorable Jackie Kwesi. I don't want to get into that because we don't have time for that. The truth is, there are strong arguments in favor of this, but I'm sure when you were even trying to interact with some of the tweets I put up, you saw some people who were agreeing with you about some of the strong elements of the bill, but most of them still said that, look, there are a lot of things that we need to look at. What is the bill saying? The pushers of the bill are saying that 4 million Ghanaians are living outside the country, and they are bringing in a lot of money. They are sending home, per the remittances report, they are sending home about $4.6 billion, especially last year. Now, if Ghana is receiving such an amount that is more than what we get from the official development assistance, or even what we get from foreign direct investment, those are not small numbers. They are very much structural to the Ghanaian economy. But it's not just the money. We know that the skills and the expertise and the knowledge networks are equally important. And there are Ghanaians in Silicon Valley, there are Ghanaians who are doctors, there are Ghanaians who are engineers, entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. We all know. But there's a reason why these people were locked out of high office in their own country. There's a reason why. There's a reason why the framers did what they had to do. Because you are not going to expose these. Me personally, I don't have a problem with the member of parliament aspect. But the security positions, the IGP, the immigration service, these security positions are very volatile. They are very, it's so much so that those in America know that even for you to become, I know people argue that, oh yeah, there are people who are in parliament representing us in they are dual citizens, they're in the UK parliament, the US parliament. Have you seen a dual citizen, according to the Americans constitution, have you seen them trying to run for presidency? Because the framers of the constitution in America are very clear that for you to run for presidency for you to run for presidency in the US, you need to be an American by birth, straightforward, because that position is very, very, very volatile. It comes up as a conversation of your allegiance. Imagine someone who is born in France.
Okay, I like where you are going, Olili, and I get into the substance. So please hold it there for me briefly. I want to do David, and then I'll come back to you with Nana Kakari. David, also, what is you see where Olili has taken it? It talks about allegiance and the fear that, why should a dual citizen become IGP or CDS? Why? What's the problem with that, David?
Thank you, Kwaku. I was following keenly the argument that was being raised by Olili. And of course, he's given us the background about this situation. And of course, I'm going to pick it up from where he ended. And Kwaku, I'm going to start off by saying that in constitutional theory, right, there's a difference between participating in public life and then commanding the coercive instrument of the state. Now, there's a reason why the framers of the Constitution believe that certain key security positions cannot be held by citizens who owe allegiances beyond the state. Now, the issue of allegiance or the issue of dual citizenship is an issue of legality. Now, when you are a citizen of a state, you owe that state a certain responsibility. Now, we find ourselves as a country in a very difficult situation. In Africa, there are security concerns. Ghana has bilateral relations when it comes to security cooperation between the Sahel. We have the Accra Initiative and several other security treaties that exist between Ghana and its neighbors. Now, imagine the situation where, and I need to state that when it comes to security, it is built on trust. The sharing of information and whatnot is built on trust. Now, the reason why you are creating that system that allows people not to be able to get in is because national security systems are not built on optimism. They are built to eliminate any avoidable vulnerabilities before they even arise. I've heard people who have made argument that, oh, there are even people who are in the security agencies who generally may sell information out to foreign powers and whatnot. But the reasoning why you are creating that barrier is not because people cannot do, but the reason why you create strong security barriers is to prevent that vulnerability from expanding its scope.
What is the vulnerability here? Are you telling me that so-called full Ghanaian IGPs or CDS, for instance, cannot sell Ghana out?
That is why I'm saying that you are creating an avenue that allows the person to now be positioned or emboldened to be able to do so.
If they are dual citizen.
If they're dual citizen, here's why. Because the issue of citizenship, like I'm saying, is on legality, it's on allegiance.
Citizenship, can we always say citizenship is allegiance? Citizenship is, okay, I'm a Ghanaian.
And what makes you a Ghanaian?
Hold on. I'm Ghanaian because I was born here. I can go to US tomorrow, and because I got married to some US lady, they give me US citizenship. It does not mean that I owe US any allegiance. No. It just means that I'm a US citizen. What does in my heart, am I loyal?
No.
Allegiance is a matter of loyalty, really.
Yes. What does it mean to be a US citizen?
It means you enjoy certain privileges.
And what does the Constitution also require of you?
You also perform certain responsibilities.
Great, now that is it. Yeah. Don't go far. Now that's it. You cannot have a situation where your head of security owes allegiances or has the potential to leak information because they've been emboldened by the situation of being a dual citizen.
The single citizens too can leak information, but hold it there for me.
What I'm doing is that you are opening that vulnerability more. You're emboldening the people.
I see.
That's false.
Nana Kakari, let me hear from you. You've heard from Olele.
Yeah.
You've heard from David. There's a real fear among a section of Ghanaian society that dual citizens perhaps may not really hold the kind of loyalty they expect of citizens.
So, you know what? I had listened to both of them and I understand where they're coming from as far as the national security concerns for certain public offices. I do understand that, and I'm also in support of that. But my question is, listen, I was born and raised in Ghana. My dad was an American. My mom is British, okay? So how would you, being born in Ghana, knowing all I've known is I am a Ghanaian. I was raised in Ghana. However, I do hold dual citizenship because of my parents, right? So if you restrict me from holding these high top tier public offices just because you feel like there will not be any loyalty from me, that's totally false. I think that what you guys are basically, focusing on is, I think the first speaker talked about Ghanaians are giving birth overseas. I mean, where do you expect Ghanaians to give birth? In the zoo? But that's just by the way. Ghanaians giving birth overseas does not take the Ghana from us, does not take the blood from us. I have a typical Ghanaian name. I know a lot of Ghanaians living abroad that invest more into their country's development than even Ghanaians who are living in Ghana right now. Why would you hold up? Why would you call me a citizen when you need me to promote the Ghana economy? Why would you call me a Ghanaian citizen when you need me to donate to national development? Why would you call me a Ghanaian citizen when you need me to share the expertise or the skills that I've learned abroad to bring it back home and share with my brothers and sisters? But then you pause right there and call me a foreigner when it's time to lead or when it's time to take public office. How would you respond to that? You need the money, you need the development, you need the investment in businesses. Then I'm a Ghanaian. But then when it comes to these public offices, no, you are a foreigner because you cannot be loyal. You cannot be loyal to us. Well, like I said, I was living in Ghana. I was born in Ghana, but I held dual citizenship. My brother is a British and American. Was also born in Ghana, was living in Ghana. So when you restrict us from holding and sharing and try to help build Ghana, I don't think that's the right or that's even constitutional. Now, I appreciate the gentleman who took us through the history of constitution, and he did mention our forefathers. This is a different time. Well, I do acknowledge that here in the United States, you can hold any public office, from a senator, congresswoman, to governor, to mayor. And you are right. The only time, and you stopped right there, you were very strategic with it. You said that, yeah, you cannot be a president unless you are a citizen born in the United States. You are right. And I do also agree that that's also good for Ghana, but it starts and stops right there. Just 2 years ago, I intend with the Biden administration, and I go into Congress, and you will see a lot of Africans, Ghanaians, Nigerians, all contributing to building America. Most of Ghanaians sitting out there always trying to travel, right? You want to travel to the UK, you want to travel to Canada, you want to travel to Europe. How do you think that these countries are developing their countries? They're using the human capital. They're using the knowledge that we Ghanaians or Africans are bringing. And that's why they made that rule here in the United States. You can hold every public office except the presidency.
Brilliant. Nana Kakari, please hold it there for me. I mean, I like the way the conversation is going. 055-11-11997. Please, if you're listening, you have a message, please do send us to us. WhatsApp 055-11-11997. Olele, you hear the point Nana Kakari is making. I'm just looking at the data when it comes to remittances from abroad. It is in the billions of cedis. Billions. These are people who are Ghanaians who have gone abroad, and because of A, B, C, or D, have had to take another citizenship. Okay? They still contribute to nation building. They do their bit, and they want to come down and help. They want they want to be an IGP with all their skills. If the person who appoints them will appoint them, why is that such a scary thing to live with?
So let me take the opportunity to clarify. And I really empathize with Nana and every other person who is holding a similar position to what she speaks of. Remember, in my submission, after I built the history as to why or how we got to where we got to, I did say that if it comes to the conversation of being an MP, even the ruling that we witnessed last year, right, or 2024, it opened roles like the Chief Justice and whatnot to be occupied by dual citizens. I don't have a problem with that. But we are looking at sovereign sensitive positions. You see, these are not regular jobs. We are not talking about dual citizens becoming economists, what you call it, diplomats, or even university lecturers, or what have you, or people who can contribute their quota, their intelligence. We are not saying that. We are saying that the bill is open positions like Inspector General of Police, Chief of Defense Staff, Director of Immigration, Secretary to the Cabinet. These are the people who control the monopoly on force. These are people who manage our borders. These are people who have access to the most sensitive security information in the country. Now, we all know as Ghanaians that we have a structural problem. And the structural problem is the institutions that we look forward to or we look up to hold people accountable, especially for things that are domestic. I'm sure you and I have seen the conversations about our former finance minister, who even, as far as you and I are concerned, we can't confirm or deny if he's a dual citizen. But even him, as one who is in the hands of the U.S. authorities, look at how we are struggling to get him back, just to come and face justice.
Yeah, but Olele, is that not the point? I mean, I can confirm that. One second. Olele, so Kenoforiata is a full Ghanaian. Of course, unless he has taken up some citizenship 2 or 3 days ago, because he served as a minister for 7 years, and to qualify to serve as a minister, you must qualify to serve as an MP. And MPs, dual citizens, are disqualified as of now. So he's been looking for a green paper in the US, which suggests that he is not a US citizen as well. But he's a full Ghanaian, and he's there. We are not pronouncing him guilty, but of course we understand the situation having to do with him. So what has that got to do with dual citizens?
Can I come in now?
My point is,
Olele,
hello,
and
can you guys hear me? I don't know if you can hear me.
and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna head back. On
I wanted to
Olele.
land.
Okay, let Olele land, and then Breezy, you can come in.
Okay, so the reason why I brought that example was, it is easier for us to not have such persons escape accountability. It is easier. In fact, it's very easy for us, for such people who could be tried in our local courts, who could be prosecuted in Ghana, who could be jailed in Ghana. Those people cannot escape accountability. I'm talking about people who are fully Ghanaians and have been given a role to play in our government or our parliament. Because what you risk doing is you are exposing these people to quickly run into their second country for safety.
Looking at the list, is there any one of them you are willing to compromise? For instance, MP.
No, that's what I said. For me personally, I don't have a challenge. Me personally, I don't have a challenge with the MP. I don't have a problem.
But then
with
MPs can become ministers and they go and sit in cabinet. So there's an MP who's a dual citizen who has been appointed minister who is sitting in cabinet. So
yes, but you see, MPs don't. Okay, David, you go ahead. I'm sure you the video.
And you see, I was listening to what's her name? No, Nana. You know, was very passionate and very emotional about the situation. And you see,
not emotional. I'm stating the facts.
Okay.
It's not passionate. It's nothing to do with passionate and emotional. You are wrong. The argument you made was weak,
okay.
and
let me respond to you, Nana. You make a very interesting case about the fact that diasporans contribute massively to our economy through remittances and stuff. In fact, I did my master's thesis on the role of the African diaspora and Africa's regional integration, particularly focused on Ghana's diaspora. So I strongly understand why the African diaspora are very important in our rebuilding and in our regional integration. And the fact is that the AU, for instance, has declared the African diaspora as the continent's sixth region. So, in fact, there are many, instruments that are being designed to allow African diasporans have the access to participate in our public governance. That's why I started off by saying that there's a striking difference between participating in public governance and commanding the state's most sensitive body, which is its security. The issue of security is one that, for us at this side of the world...
Your main concern, David, is that if you have an IGP who's a dual citizen, whose loyalty you may contest, may say that his dual is a bit of his loyalty may still be with the other
It's
country.
not a bit, it is. Because the issue of citizenship is an issue of legality. It is not an issue of perception. It's you see, we are sitting here dealing with issues of perception. Oh, the person can. Oh, what if?
Yeah, but it's not. You cannot say that.
No,
the dual citizen will necessarily sell out his country.
Exactly why security doesn't dwell on perceptions. Security does what? It deals with the vulnerabilities, closing the gap.
I didn't know you had gone to Kofi Annan.
You don't need to ensure. What you're supposed to do with security is to prevent the gap from being widened and allowing that vulnerability to weaken you. That is the reason.
Okay,
it is not because
David,
you're saying that.
I think Nana wants to respond to this particular point. Nana, let me hear
So
you.
it seems that both gentlemen are focusing on the national security, if I'm correct, which I do agree. And I did say that there are certain roles that are very sensitive that I don't think that those roles should go to the, dual citizenship, somebody who has dual citizenship. I do agree with that. And I think we are all on the same page.
I think we're on the same page there.
But no, listen to me. Don't get too excited because what's coming your way, I don't think you'll be happy with it. But here's the thing. What I'm trying to say is that Will you put me under the situation where I was born and raised in Ghana? I'm only a dual citizenship just by paper, but just by a travel document, okay? I still live in Ghana. Still my residency is in Ghana. I was born from the day I was born, I was a dual citizenship. I was raised in Ghana. So when you restrict somebody like me living in Ghana but holding the title as dual citizenship and preventing me from taking these public offices, do you think that is fair to somebody like that? Forget a dual citizenship living abroad. Let's talk about me living in Ghana, being raised in Ghana, but then by paper and by my parents being British American, therefore I was born with this multinationality, therefore you restricting me. Whereas all I've known is Ghana, right? All I've known is our constitution, and all I've known is growing up wanting to contribute to our society. When you stop me, my friend, you're doing more harm to Ghana than doing good. I'm telling you.
Now, Nana, David, let me just quickly chip in here. Nana, you've already admitted that we are all on the same page about the sensitive positions that this bill allows for dual citizenship run up. And now we are against that aspect of the bill. We are not against the bill suggesting that dual citizenship should not play a significant role in the nation's development. Like I already said, in April 2024, the court ruling, the 6-1 ruling that allowed dual citizens, I don't know if you've seen that or if you've read that, the court ruling suggests that dual citizens can be chief justice, they can be chief directors. In fact, they can be military colonels and above. That is in 2024, right? There was not much of a rage. There wasn't much of, the back and forth that we are having today. But today we are saying that ruling has already put us in a very sensitive position. It's put us in a very shaky position.
Yeah, but only if you can have a dual citizen become chief justice. Chief Justice, the head of the judiciary. Why can't that person become IGP?
That is why David is even telling you that the allegiance is not based on perception. It's based on legality. That is what David is trying to explain to you.
But can I say that?
Once you start drawing in the issue of, I have lived all my life in Ghana, and just by a paper, and as a result of that, I owe my allegiance more to Ghana. Those arguments are arguments that, excuse me to say, those are pedestrian arguments. Listen, the issue of security and legality in modern day governance, what thrives is leverage. What the other country has over you is what leverage it has over you. Now, the issue of leverage, you have somebody who says that, well, I live in Ghana, I owe all my allegiance to Ghana because I've stayed here, but I have kids who are abroad. I have a family who are living in this country. You enter into a confrontation with that other country. I'm coming.
I said I pledge allegiance to Ghana because guess what? I am a 100%.
I'm not referring to you. I'm not referring to you. I'm not referring to you per se. Nana, I'm not referring to you. I'm just giving a general situation, right? You are, and when I say you, I don't mean you, Nana Kakari. You are a citizen who has lived his or her life in Ghana. You are a Ghanaian citizen by virtue of your parents being born abroad whatsoever, or you going to study abroad or living there for a while. You have gained citizenship of the other country. Now you, that same person, happen to be the CDS of Ghana or the head of the IGP or the head of the national security, because you see, once we begin to open the window to allow certain positions to have that responsibility of being given those positions because of the fact that they are dual citizen, what happens is that person now sit at a very tight position. You are here as the CDS of Ghana. Ghana enters into a confrontation with country X. You have kids, you have family relatives who you are a citizen of that country, and you are supposed to enter into a confrontation with that country.
Let's see this example you've given. You have a CDS like we have now, full Ghanaian, 100%, no dual citizenship. IGP Yohunu, full Ghanaian, but they have, let's say, their wife or their kids, they are dual citizens. They are in America, they are there, they are somewhere. You enter into a confrontation with that country. He is a full citizen. So are we? What happens then? Because they still have a certain connection by virtue of their families who are either citizens of those countries or living there, whatever. What about that?
You see, the security scrutiny that happens to you attaining a position doesn't necessarily extend to your immediate.
Considerations can be the same. If
Yes,
this guy,
it
No, the
does,
considerations
my
cannot
friend.
be the same. If
Yes,
the
it
considerations
does.
can be the same, then the framers of the U.S. Constitution could have said that, well, you can be a U.S. citizen. You can be a dual citizen, but because you've lived all your life in the U.S., you can still be a U.S. president. Or have you seen any of the top military, countries or top countries having,
Brilliant.
let's say, the FBI or the head of the national security being a dual citizen? No. The issue of security is an
it can
issue
be.
of leverage, is an issue of vulnerability.
Great.
You don't want to expose yourself to. Once you open the can, you give more opportunity. You see, in this part of the world where we sit, we don't pay so much attention to security. It's like on the last things, like people are just waiting for things to happen and then you react to it. But you see, preventing that vulnerability is what makes you a strong state. And a lot of people think that African countries are going to remain like this forever, where you're always going to be subpar to the European powers or subpar to the US or the Western countries. No, a time is coming when the African states will be a man on their own. And when they become a man on their own and their people are now people that have allegiances, legal allegiances to other countries, what
Excuse
then
me,
becomes
sir,
of the countries?
Can I interject, Kwaku? Can I interject? Because
please come in. I was
you
actually
set
bringing
up
you
a
in.
scene-
David is good.
Yeah, you set up a scene where he tried to escape while making that weak argument, right? Go into parliament right now and ask if there's anybody who doesn't have any relative, a friend, a colleague, or whatever living abroad. Because if you are, what you are describing right now is that there is a national security concern if you have some link to the outside world, and therefore whether you're a full Ghanaian, whether you basically have whether citizenship or whether Kweku painted it out. What if you have this man in parliament? Their kids are in abroad, and I can tell you 90% of them have their kids and relatives or whatever. I bet you yourself, David, you have a friend, you have a relative.
David, in fact,
you
David,
have
I can confirm
somebody
David
you
Quinn
know
has two kids who are in the
who
US.
lives
Kwaku Asante,
abroad,
please.
right? So are you saying that just because you have some link with someone who is of a foreign citizen makes you a national security threat in holding public office? Yes or no? Because I have a follow-up to do. Are you saying, is that what you are saying? Because
No,
if that's what you are saying, then that's very dangerous.
Your question is maybe a very weak question to say that you become a national security threat because you have a connection to somebody else. I know that is
That's
not the
what I'm
case.
implying.
What I am implying is that
excuse me, sir,
when it
that
comes
you
to the
didn't listen
basis
me.
of
You didn't
making
listen to me.
decisions, really,
Okay, guys, hold it there, David. Brilliant, hold it there.
too.
Brilliant, hold it there, David. Okay, so I think we are getting some point. We are getting close to really interesting, fascinating conversation. And I can carry David Quinn and Olele. Let me bring in Olele again. Olele, this bill, I'm telling you, I report from Parliament. There's near unanimity. But of course, citizens must speak out. And I'm very surprised that kind of comments that people actually didn't follow that this bill nearly passed in 2024. Had it not been for the Speaker declaring some seats vacant, that led to confrontation and Parliament wasn't sitting, that bill was going to pass because it was all but done. And it's just a 2-clause bill. It would have just gone through like that. What has happened now, the bill has been laid to go through a certain process, constitutional amendment. This particular provision is not entrenched, but it will come back on the floor within the next few months, and then a decision ought to be taken. What are you saying to Parliament? I wanted to get OPK and then the Member of Parliament on. I couldn't get them eventually. But what are you telling Parliament? Should they stop it? Or there are certain amendments that you think can be made, certain changes that will obviously placate you and those like David?
Was that for me?
Yes, Olele.
Okay, so you know what was happening while I think you were giving the synopsis to your question. Nana was firing, so I couldn't.
I'm
hear.
saying that we've gotten to a
I
point
couldn't hear
where
you, so-
where
Yeah,
this bill is progressing. Because I report
Yeah.
from Parliament, I get a sense that listen, there's near
Definitely,
unanimity
it's
in
going to
Parliament.
pass.
What are you telling Parliament? Should they pull the brakes immediately? More consultations? Because some people have said that this is long overdue. Allow dual citizens to enjoy all public positions, perhaps except the president and vice president, because that is entrenched.
Yeah.
Nana, Kwaku, Nana Krama Muraho. You see, my position is clear. I am not saying that dual citizens aren't real Ghanaians. I'm not saying that the diaspora isn't important. We've already checked the numbers. Over 4.6 billion a year. It tells a story on its own. Okay? We are also not saying that the framers of the 1992 Constitution were infallible. But you could, we are students of history, and as much as possible, we try to learn why things were done a particular way. Not because we are trying to follow other countries, but because we know our people. You see, just a week or two ago, we were talking about Nkrumah and Kotoka and the coup and then this and then that. If you look at the full context,
the people they say they did the
coup,
they were full Ghanaian citizens. They were not dual citizens.
That is what I am saying. That
it's more risky.
Enupo. That is what I'm saying. That even those who we thought were fully Ghanaians,
allegiance.
No legal allegiance.
Could do
See
that.
what they did. So we are not saying that. That's the reason why I believe that the framers of the Constitution, they deliberately put the safeguards around sovereign sensitive positions. It's not because they hated diasporans, because we know Nkrumah and any other leader who has had opportunity to be in front of the country have engaged with our family members, relatives in the diaspora. But they understood that certain jobs require enforceable accountability. And that accountability can get complicated when someone has a legal exit route to another country. That is what I believe David and I are saying. Okay? So if you are like Nana, you are a diaspora advocate, you have already won a major battle in the April ruling in 2024, because it opened pathways that didn't exist 2 years ago. It's saying that dual citizens can hold even the highest judicial office in Ghana. Fantastic history. But if you want the IGP's office and the CDS, you want these positions that control the police, you want these positions that control the military and the board, you have to earn it through what you may call it. The ruling also suggests that the Constitution also suggests that if you want to have this thing, then it has to go through a supermajority. This bill does not suggest that it should go through a supermajority. It says that just a majority. Now, mind you, we have a situation in Parliament where we already have a supermajority. So that is why I can agree with you when you say that the bill is already on its way to getting passed. But we need to look at the weight of the change. We need to look at the weight of the change.
Interesting. Olele, please hold it there for me. Let me take some messages, because the messages are coming in thick and fast. So many people sending us their messages, what they make of this very, very important conversation about whether or not we need to allow dual citizens to hold certain public office. And already you hear the voices and the exchanges right here on Ghana Connect. So this one from Tony says, good evening, Joy FM. My late father came to Gold Coast from Liberia and saw the independence of Ghana, but my mother was born in Gold Coast. So am I Ghanaian? Well, your question is a strictly legal question. If you look at the Citizenship Act, it will tell you clearly whether you are Ghanaian or not. This one says, Kwaku, tell the lady on the call also that if we don't take care, CIA can start sponsoring dual citizens for future espionage and subtle destabilization of Ghana and other African states. William, my answer to that is always to say that they can do that through the Vikwe and the Dostis and co who are full Ghanaian citizens. But anyway, this one from Abochi at Adidome, Central Tong, says, if America of all nations accept dual citizenship, then we here in Ghana say no. We are told Obama is a Kenyan but can become president. Let's pass the bill now. I like Nana Kakari that we need money. When we need money and expertise, we call on them as Ghanaians. When we don't, then we sack them. This one from Emmanuel North K says, I fully agree with Nana. In US, and vehemently disagree with a guy in the studio, that is a Vikwe, here in Ghana. We think very myopic here in Africa for that matter. Well, Emmanuel, that's your thoughts. This one says, good evening, my name is Etonam Yao. Dual citizens cannot hold offices such as our security and very high positions because they may owe allegiance to another country. And those positions require undivided loyalty and National Security Trust. Lesser positions they can hold, but security and high positions, they should not be allowed. Then this one says, good evening, we are a joke. We do not seem to have a way to fight terrorism. This topic is what our parliament is seeking to do. With dual citizenship, it's not necessary and a bad priority of the Ghanaian parliament. That is the messages coming in. A lot of them coming in via our console. So let's begin to wind down. Breezy. Professor Kwaku Asante, and I wanted to get him on. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him on. He's been very strong on this. He'll tell you strictly that he doesn't think that allegiance is the same as citizenship. In fact, there are certain positions in the U.S., like if you want to become a professor in certain public universities, you must become a U.S. citizen. So Ghanaians who are teaching there, they have to take up the U.S. citizenship because of they are climbing up. And they need it to retain certain benefits there and all of that. And if they want to come down and serve their country, you say that all of a sudden you don't trust them. You don't trust them to come and serve their country diligently. Can we not put in place safeguards? I mean, if you have dual citizens playing for Black Stars, when it was...
Is somebody playing for Black Star a security threat?
Do you think, as a Marjan missing that penalty, do you know the number of people they said collapse
I can't
and
think
die?
anybody can fly into Ghana with something
let's not do
you
this.
know, I'm not even going to say.
Okay, you Breezy. So you don't want to make any compromises at all when it comes to the security positions. You think the status quo must remain.
The sovereignty of your state is in its ability to make hard decisions that is not influenced by anybody. Other than that, your sovereignty is only on paper. And that has been the argument that has been pushed forth from time immemorial. And the reasoning is that African countries, in quote, claim to have gained independence, but as Nkrumah wrote in his book, we are in a stage of imperialism where we are inadvertently being controlled without necessarily having the controller in the space. What we are doing is that the framers of the Constitution understood and created or instilled that line, not out of fear, Kwaku Asante or Kakari or anybody listening. It was not that barrier was created not out of fear, but it is a safeguard that is supposed to protect the state in its future and its sovereignty. As we stand now, there's this general... I heard somebody saying that it's myopic thinking. The person is rather being myopic in his thinking because you are only looking at now. Even now...
When we get there,
we are not going to get there.
We can always change the law.
We can't. You see, when you open the floodgate, closing it becomes more tighter.
Brilliant. Olele, let me put you the same questions to you. I think you make a little concession that you say, well, when it comes to MP, you are willing to let it go. I'm coming. The same thing.
I don't have... My only issue.
Really, I still see, yeah. So the security chiefs, CDS, IGP, and all of that. Are you making any concessions there, or you are cast in stone when it comes to that and say that, listen, Olele, if you are not a full Ghanaian, and I don't like the term full Ghanaian because a dual citizen is still a full Ghanaian, but I just don't know what word to use. So you don't want to make any exceptions when it comes to that. Because, listen, look at Andy Dusty, a very prominent guy. He holds like 3 citizenship, and he still plays his national roles very well. He DJs and everybody is enjoying.
He's
participating in public life.
Nowhere close to your security positions. You see, listen, I think this conversation can go in circles because we all have different POVs that will obviously clash in the middle. But I still say that these positions, i.e. the IGP, CDS, what do you call it, Secretary to the Cabinet, Director of Immigration, I strongly believe that when we look at our own history, right, even our own people who were put in these positions let the country down. Even our own people who were put in these positions once upon a time let the country down. So we shouldn't open up more enablement that would give these positions the freedom to escape accountability. That is what all I'm saying.
Interesting.
Now you talk about even the U.S. military, and I want to just take the opportunity to read a comment from Fui, who says that you can enlist as a non-citizen, but you must have a green card for those in the U.S. you cannot become a high-ranking military official without becoming a citizen. And in becoming a citizen, you need to swear an oath that states, and I quote, "I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty of whom or which I have heretofore, of which I have therefore been a subject or a citizen." This is the oath you need to what? Pledge an allegiance to. So we can say, oh, America even allows that. America has introduced a framework that puts you
A firewall.
in a position where when you enter into that framework, or you enter that firewall, like David said, you are not looking back. So you can be a Ghanaian, you can be a dual citizen, but you have sworn an oath to be committed to the nooks and crannies of the American government. That is what the oath says when you enter into a place like the military. So it's not straightforward. No, I didn't write the oath. Nana, I didn't write the oath. The oath is on the internet.
Really?
You can read it.
You did not,
So
based on your argument you are making, because...
No, so I'm saying that...
Okay, so Nana, let's Olele wrap up in 20 seconds, and I give you the last word.
Saying that Nana is asking me how I think the lawmakers should, look at this bill again. And like we've already established.
Kwaku asked you that question.
No, I'm saying, sorry. I mean, Kwaku definitely, and I'm just trying to establish something here, that the law or the bill is almost looking like it's being passed. But my point is, my position is the leaders, the framers who are looking to do this, should take a second look at these positions, these specific positions I've said. That even if the law decides or the bill decides to get passed, we need to introduce certain firewalls, certain protections that will not come back and bite us in the butt. That is all I'm going to say. As for you and I, we can't do much. We can only protest with these conversations, but we need to introduce, or they need to look at introducing firewalls in this bill so that it will not come and bite us in the back. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Nana, last word.
We are always
So,
reactive.
all I'll say is that whether you like it or not, the bill is going to go through. So get over it. It's time to start, molding yourself to adjust to the bill, because folks who have dual citizenship like myself, 100% Ghanaian. I pledge allegiance to Ghana. I do also pledge allegiance to American, but I don't think that I should be restricted from any public office, because you know why? My allegiance or my loyalty to Ghana shouldn't be limited to my travel document. You heard?
Brilliant. So I have this very interesting message that I'm going to read to conclude. It says, Kwaku, regarding the point being made about the CDS holding dual nationality and the possibility of conflict of allegiance, it is worth putting that argument in perspective. Jordan Ayew and his brother Andrew Ayew both hold dual nationality. Yet no one questioned their commitment to the Black Stars. They have given everything on the pitch, often more than many of the so-called, quote, full-blooded Ghanaians. Dual nationality does not automatically translate into divided loyalty. Commitment is demonstrated through conduct and service, not merely by passport status. At one point, the United Kingdom even appointed a Canadian, McCartney, as governor of the Bank of England. And he is the Prime Minister of Canada now. A highly sensitive national role without any questions about allegiance, undermining his competence or duty. First Smith is an editor at Join News. He sent us very thought-provoking message. Breezy, there's no last word for you. 10 seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds. And I'm just going to make this statement that the question before us is very simple. Whether Ghana should voluntarily introduce a structural ambiguity into the very top brass of its security architecture or not. And I believe, Kwaku Asante, that the framers understood the stakes, and we should be very careful before we undo that constitutional wisdom. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Olele Salvador, it was brilliant having you on, and we hope that as and when some of these big national conversations come up, we can always count on you to come and share your views on Ghana Connect. Thank you very much, David Kui. Thank you very much, Nana Kakari, as always, for connecting. For those of you who sent us messages, please, thank you very much that you were able to send us your thoughts on this important conversation. Andy Dusty, as always, is up next with the library. A big conversation. And those of you who don't know, Andy Dusty is a Ghanaian, he's an American, and he's a UK citizen as well. So 3 in 1. Very few people that I know who hold 3 citizenship. Tomorrow on Newsfile, Burkina terror attack, state failed and citizens killed. Russian sex video will victims get justice? Oforiata off red notice. Impact on the case. And CJ dismisses 10 petitions. Joyful and angry reactions. With Samson Ladi and Yenini on the show. Breezy said you have some shout
Yeah, I mean, shout out to my colleagues at Fitcher Tennis, Helena, Stephanie. They're in tune, so big shouts to them.
Hopefully, I can pass by office one day and see Helena and all the beautiful ladies in your office. Andy Dusty is up next with the library. My name is Kwaku Asante. I'll see you again, same time,